Hi everyone, welcome to episode 3 of my Cash Game Play and Explain series. Just want to say thank you for everyone who's liked and commented on the previous video. Good to see a lot of you enjoying the content out there. So yeah, please continue to give feedback as you see fit, and I'll continue to produce videos for you all. We've got 4 tables up, 2 of 500 on the right and 2 of 1K on the left. We're playing slightly deeper at 1K. We did win Queens versus Aces all in pre against player 2, which was um, a nice suck out. He's also playing some non-standard sizing, so suspect he's a recreational player. Gonna fold the Ace-3 off. This player's playing quite aggressively, and I've also made a pretty light fall down versus him in a river spot. So yeah, just need to be careful as to how that dynamic plays out. Rebetting the nines, and we'll 3-bet the ace king when it comes to us. Playing 41 VPip over 29 hands. Again, like not not ruling out that he can be a reg. He can just be getting good hands, but a higher VPip than you would expect. Also higher 3-bet frequency, albeit that's an even smaller sample. It might just be like quite an aggressive reg. And on this 1K table here, we've obviously got a 50 big blind stack, so potential recreational player, or probable recreational player. And I think against a recreational, we can probably 3-bet this. It's pretty awkward at the 50 big blind stack size. And we've got a 3 big blind open on button, which is fine. This is pretty loose. But we'll go for it. King 9-5. We can start with small bets here. Queens is going to be one of the hands that like doesn't mind a check here. But I think I'm happy to range bet for quarter pot. Okay, so we do get a call. Ace of diamonds, 10 of diamonds, 7 of diamonds, monotone board. I think we can just get away with a small bet strategy against presumably a recreational player here. Just going to go quarter pot and probably do this with range, even though it's not going to be theoretical to do this with range. We do have to be careful, like the recreational, depending on exactly what their range looks like defending the 3-bet, if they over defend ace X offsuit combos, then they have a lot of top pair on that board, and they're probably also just not folding top pair. So yeah, there are some interesting considerations that we should think about on that spot there. Opening up the king 8 off. And get a call. Queen 10-6. Yeah, we can take a number of strategies here. We can play overbets, we can play small bets. I think I don't mind an overbet with this hand. There are some nice turns that we can continue barreling on. Do take it down. And open up the twos. And folding the jack seven off. Yeah, so we've got this guy flatting cutoff. Yeah, just going to be like some sort of recreational. He seems to be on the tighter side generally. So like, maybe he's not going to be a fish that's just going to punt off money into us. Okay, so we see ace four deuce. Certainly button versus big blinds. This is supposed to be a high check frequency board. This player hasn't been super aggressive. So I'm not sure whether we want to check flop and expect him to start blasting off into us on turns. We can also play like small bets and try and induce raises. If he thinks that we're just betting range and going to raise at a higher frequency, it is also a strategy that we can adopt. And then we can also just take bigger bets as well. I'm going to go the small bet and try and induce raise. I think this can work against regs who, know that this is not a range bet board, and the third pot sizing is going to be perceived as like a range bet from me. So if actually I filter it to just be like quite a strong range, then I'm going to do really well versus continues. Obviously sometimes we're dead versus 3-5 here, right? But we're also now just going to do a small 3-bet. Are we? I think so. It's potentially a bit inconsistent to say that we're getting him to over 3-bet, so potentially over raise, so potentially he's out of line. And then to 3-bet him because we ideally want him to blast off. But also I think 3-bets are generally perceived as being weaker by regulars in these sort of spots, and so that my range is more often just bullshit. So potentially he can think that I'm spewing off here. Obviously, as played, we now have a super strong hand. I think we just played B75. And then jam river. A pretty quick call. Yep, it'll suck if we're running into ace 4, ace 10, or pocket fours, but we'll be just all in here. And hopefully he's got the straight now. He does have the ace 4. That's a pretty unfortunate spot. I don't think we're ever not getting the money in on that run out though, so not much you can do about that. I think just checking this one down, we have some diamond equity here. And then when we bink the river, like we always have the best hands. So just always raising the fish here. We're betting ace jack. I mean, we don't always have the best hand. Sometimes he doesn't lead a flush on the turn. I think we should be able to go pretty big. And like, we're never really getting player 4 to come along. Like, I think he's just folding range. Folding the ace jack off. We'll defend the 7-4 suited and fold the 7 deuce. Can start with small bets here. We can start with big bets. This hand can probably do either. think in practice we want to always bet this hand as opposed to check. Villains are probably just under protecting their flop checking range. Even though this is supposed to be just a high frequency checkboard anyway, so villain may be appropriately protecting if they are checking, you know, a large chunk of range. When we don't turn additional equity, I'm gonna call the 9-7. We can also potentially 3-bet. Do we want to barrel on the 10? I think it's optional. And check the stump. It's a pretty quick check in the top left. We are just going to bet the ace-7 off here and possibly look to go for check raise with the 9-7 in the bottom left. I think after we see the quick check, I don't know whether our bet check bet line here is going to be perceived as credible from a likely reg. Not sure. I think we can put in another small bet here with the ace-7 now and then check back rivers. Gonna go for raise here. Get the fold. I don't think I'm gonna go for the bluff here. It's quite possibly mandatory. But I think this will get overcalled. Like, am I getting king 8 to fold there? Maybe if I take a large sizing. I'm not 100% sure. That could well be a mandatory bluff. Do I think this guy is enough of a station to call me 3 straights with 5x or 4x? Possibly, but we're getting quite thin now. And he can just have 10x. I think this is quite thin. I am going to check. I am going to check. Yeah, he's rivered a set of 2s, so at least we checked. But yeah, I think he's on the station side. So when we see 2s there, like maybe a river bet there is still going to be fine. Would be my takeaway there. So we can probably like expect him to be a station and just like value bet quite thin. I think actually, whilst in after seeing his cards and his riveter sets, we obviously prefer to check. I think after seeing the showdown, like I think betting was better in that line. I'm gonna go for overbet here with the queen 7. Opening up the queen 8 off, it's fairly on the threshold. But neither of these players, you know, is standing out as like a super strong reg, so we're probably going to get under 3-bet and it's going to be fine. This guy obviously flatting small blind. We also saw him opening the hijack to 3 big blinds, so probably a recreational player, also not playing 100% a full stack. Ace to off, it is versus the 2 big blind open, but we'll just let this go. So 7-7-5 going to be a high frequency check board. This is going to be, you know, it's yeah, I think it's still going to be high frequency check against the small blind flat. I was initially thinking it was against the big blind. I think this hand does like betting though. We'll check this time though. And if check 2, we're going to high frequency bet turn, I think, on the ace. Ace 4 down the bottom right. fairly snug reg, could consider 4-bet, but I think particularly once we 4-bet, we're committing ourselves versus the recreational at the top. So we're just going to let this one go, albeit a tight recreational. Yeah, so I think we can get away with B125, B125. I might actually just like immediately take that back because I guess he's never folding ace X. And we see a pretty quick call. I don't think he ever folds ace X versus B125. Does he fold if we go bigger? He probably doesn't have any flushes. After he checks flop, checks turn, pretty quick call. We're running out of time here. We're just going to check. I think that's a really annoying hand to say. Okay, so he flats super wide. I was if we hadn't wasted all our time bank, I think I was lining up on a bigger overbet size than B125 to actually start seeing if we can get some of his ace X region to fold. As it was though, I realized last second that we had like two seconds of time bank. So yeah, didn't have time to formulate a size, so we went with check. I think we do probably want to find a. Yeah, it's interesting whether we want to bluff that pure. It's just going to be contingent on whether we think we can get his ace X region to fold. And then once we see, I think he floated us queen jack no draw on turn versus overbet. So once we see that, double barreling is just like going to be absolutely printing, and so it's absolutely a mandatory bluff against him. Yeah, so he flattered versus overbet with queen jack one heart. So yeah, just like very much a station, and we can print versus him by double barreling there. So yeah, gonna give this guy the orange tag, flatting queen jack off from the small blind, and then flats overbet on turn, queen high no draw. Obviously opening up the ace king. We see a 4 big blind open from the small blind, just going to be folding the queen 3 off. 4 big blind from small blinds. I mean, this guy looks like a reg. It's going to be some sort of exploit strategy, I'd imagine. So queen jack, sorry, ace king here. I often will just play jams here against a weaker player. I think we probably just prefer 4-bet though. Do we want to 4-bet bigger? Possibly. I'm just going to take the GTO sizing though. We may want to 4-bet bigger if we think he's going to flat too wide a range, which he presumably will be. Yeah, the 4 big blind open is non-standard, but I assume it's going to be, yeah, as I said, some sort of exploit strategy. Assuming that population's not going to defend appropriately versus the 4 big blinds, and that might be that they call too wide versus it, or they under 3-bet versus it as well. Obviously, our hand though is just going to be a pure fold versus any of the sizings. He's also now opening 3 big blinds from the cutoff, which again is like not your standard sizing from a reg. So, yeah, interesting exactly what's going on with him. He's like quite tight though, so maybe he's just opening bigger with a stronger range. Also got this guy opening 3 big blinds from the low jack. I think ace 10 is probably too loose to 3-bet here. Like, if we think he's a recreational, then it can be fine, but his stats don't really. He's not going to be a super weak player, so I don't think we can get away with it. We see just like a fairly autopilot third pot on 774, which, you know, if he's betting range there, it's not really what he wants to be doing. I've given him the light blue tag, which is like not the recreational tag, but more the just like bad reg / could be recreational. Would be how I'd define it. Queen Jack's marginal here. I think I'm also just going to sit out of this table. There aren't any clear spots. We had this guy noted as like being quite aggressive and quite stationy, but I don't think we're really printing against him, particularly with his spot in the table relative to ours. Just going to fold the ace 10 off versus. It is a small 3-bet, but I don't think we really want to play anything else here other than fold. We'll see if there are any tables running at any of the other stakes. So the 2K table that we've just opened up, it's full. The general assumption is that therefore there might be a rec on the table if it's full and running. This guy, yeah, was started the pot with a 93 big blind stack, so maybe it's player 2. I think happy to sit in orbit and see how it goes. Gonna pause the recording as I have to take a call. And back now. I don't think you missed much. Queen Jack off here. We can 3-bet, we can call. Gonna call this time. And open up the Queen Deuce. Gonna solve check. I think we probably have to continue versus third pot. We face 5.8 into 8.8. Just like looking at the exact sizing, this is 66% pot. Given his like timing of his bets and also facing 66 here as opposed to bigger, I think we can get away with raise here. So we will go for it. Question is, do we want to be one and done, or do we want to follow through on rivers? Probably going to depend on the timing of the call. Going to check the fours here. We do get it through. Just like a bit suspicious flop timing, a bit suspicious turn sizing, and also turn timing. You know, possibly suggesting either recreational, weaker reg, and or just like not really considering what his range wants to be doing there. So potentially can get away with an out of line raise. Do we want to open up the fours? I don't think so. like reasonably safe river card too. I think we can now just check if there's like another overcard that rolls off. Do we have to consider bluffing? And we face third pot here. I think we just let it go. I think when we're going to be facing bluffs here, people are generally going to take a large sizing, and we also don't need to do all the defending, right? Like the small blind can do some of it as well. So I think we will just fold. That's like, can be a really profitable spot for him to just like bluff any two, right? And so that's, I guess, what we need to consider. If we think that's happening at any frequency, then like we need to hero that down. I just think that people who are going to choose to start bluffing any two there, and for what it's worth, I think that's a like totally viable strategy after facing that action. I think those people are either going to bluff like a B75 sizing or even like an overbet sizing, and just assume that people are going to fold range. I'm going to start with B125 here on the Ace King 7. Going to fold, and going to start with check raise against, I'm going to assume, a recreational player playing 50% VPIP again across 19 hands, but also flatting button. Like these decisions or these factors on their own don't indicate that they're recreational, but when you start adding them together, it makes it much more higher frequency. Do I want to bet here? I think I do just want to make a small bet, and also just bloat the size of the pot slightly for when the board pairs. And also we can get called from a recreational by non-heart hands there as well. As it was, he clearly just had nothing going. So we need to make a decision here at the 2K table whether we are choosing to sit the spot or not. With no clear short stack, I think I'll be just sitting out unless we see something in the next couple of hands. This was, I think, the guy that we said is potentially the recreational. It's a non-standard 3-bet sizing, but it's probably fine. I'm going to play 4-bet against it though. 4-bet and flat are both going to be fine. Hold the Ace-9 off. Obviously, if we face jam, we'll be calling it off. We're going to wrap up the recording after this hand, so hopefully this is a good finish to the hand and not a cooler. We will be calling it off. Good luck, us. The Ace King, and we're in trouble here. Well, that is a good way to finish off the video. Binking the Jack on the turn, and we do see him refill for 50 big blinds, so we may continue playing this spot. But anyway, thank you for listening, and chat to you next time. Bye.